Hi, everyone, and welcome back. We're here at another day on Character Productions for the update on the Trezell and Jacqueline West trial. As most of you know, this trial is not being televised or even distributed audio to anyone. If you want to keep up with it, you basically have to just listen directly to the county's website. And a lot of people have a hard time just listening to this because you can't see what's going on. Sometimes you get total silence. You're like, what are they doing now? You don't even know. It's a hot mess. Anyway, that's why I'm here to keep you guys updated on what is going on. Couple of things happened today. First, let me say this is the last day of the week that I will be doing a video because apparently they did not have trial today on Thursday, and they will not be having trial on Friday of this week. So it'll be Monday before you hear from me again after this one. One of the people that's been following this trial really closely who's in the trial who is there in the courtroom, and I kind of like to stay. I check in on what she's providing for us, and then I also check on a couple of other reporters as well. So we're going to start off with this Jaquim. Oh, I know I'm going to mess his name up. His last name is Kim. He's a DNA specialist, okay? And he basically was talking about the diaper that they found and how they took a bunch of testings from it and they couldn't really rule out everyone. Let me see. Basically, what that boiled down to was Ryan Dean, Charles Pettis, and Ralph Mosley all are the biological parents of the boys, right? They were excluded. Orson was excluded, but there was not enough evidence to determine if Orrin, Jacqueline, and Trezell were contributors. All on this diaper, right? Okay. So Damien and Devin West, who are the oldest biological sons of the Wests, could not be excluded either. Kim had said that his only responsibility with this item was to interpret the DNA profile from the diaper, but he himself did not swab it. Somebody else did. We had them on earlier in the week. He said the profile was a mixture of at least two individuals. They brought up pictures of the diapers. They also brought up one of the car seats, and Kim said Orson could not be excluded as a possible contributor on the car seats. Now, then Torres Stallings, who is the defense attorney for Jacqueline West, got up. And she was asking Kim if he is referring to the boys, why he kept referring to the boys as classic and sincere. And he basically said, well, you know what? That's what the DNA profile says. That's what their names are for the DNA profile. So that's what I have to go by. Now, remember, these DNA profiles, they came from Ryan Dean, the biological mother. So, of course, she's going to put her names for the boys on this stuff. But, of course, being that the West had renamed the boys, I didn't like that, so they had to bring that up. Okay, why are we going to focus on that? Because we have nothing else to focus on. Why are we turning the jury's eyes on that? Because they have nothing else to turn the jury's eyes on. It's the whole mask of the bad work done by the investigators, which, they had some really good points on some of that, but still. All right. So Kim had said that Orrin and Orson's DNA profiles were electronic profiles and partial profiles. Compared to the other profiles, this is his first time working with an electronic profile. Great. Awesome. Just what we needed to hear in this case, right, guys? Ugh. Could it get any worse on the investigative side? Kim says he has to interpret the DNA profiles. And he says if something comes back inconclusive, it does not mean that a person does not contribute DNA. So basically, Kim said, we can't say one way or another. So then Torres Stallings asked him specifically about a green blanket that was collected from one of the bottom bunk beds in the West home, and he said no DNA testing was done to that blanket. Oh, that's not good. Another blanket in the other bedroom was also not tested for DNA. Torres Stallings asked if they could have tested for DNA on those items, and Kim said they could have done a blind swab, but that would have picked up anything. So Torres Stallings asked if this included skin cells, and Kim said yes. That's a good point. I mean, yeah, you're going to just kind of go in blindly, but the blue mattress cover from the bottom bunk also had 7 stains on it. Kim only tested one cutting for DNA. And Torres Stallings asked if there was a reason that they didn't do 2 more cuttings, and Kim said their strategy was to focus on clusters of stains. Now to another item, Kim said that there was not enough statistical data to conclude if Orrin was or wasn't a contributor. Another mattress covering also provided not enough statistical support to conclude if Orrin was or wasn't a contributor. Torres Stalling is pointing out another sample that did not have enough statistical support to conclude if Orrin Orson or Ryan Dean were contributors. So then Torres Stallings asked what the lab could have done if they were given fingerprints, and Kim said if a fingerprint was swabbed, they could blind test it for skin cells. Hennessy, who is the defense attorney for Trezell, got up and asked if what the results were for the blanket that was tested for DNA. And Kim said that Devin, one of the older sons of the West and one of the biological sons of the West, was the only one who could not be excluded. Everyone else was excluded. Hennessy asked if Kim, during testing, found that a Bakersfield Police Department officer's DNA was showing up as a contamination. Uh-oh. Kim said any DNA profile they test is also tested against their staff. He said testing from a swab of one of the car seats could not exclude an officer. Okay, well, that's a good, okay, good. So I'm sure that comes up in court all the time. Smith had a short redirect on Kim, and that was pretty much it. Let me go back to one other spot. Torres Stallings asked Kim if he interpreted those statistics, and he said that we don't interpret them, we report them. He said they double check to make sure their information is accurate. Kim said that their sampling strat was to sample areas where there was a cluster that tested positive for saliva. That was their strategy when they cited these toppers for DNA. A mattress topper from the bottom bunk with the 7 stains. That's what they were talking about there. Okay. Kim, in all of his whole entire testimony, the most important thing was that he said that all of his tests showed negative for saliva. Smith had asked if they had performed testing on any of the toothbrushes, and he swabbed the bristles of the toothbrush to get DNA. The results of that testing showed the DNA profile was single sources and from a female. So that was Jacqueline's. I would take it. Eric Smith, the prosecutor, showed Kim the pruning shears. Kim said it tested negative in the Kastle-Meyer test, so no blood was on it. So let's just throw out that whole thing about the pruning shears because they made such a big deal about that. And to wrap everything up with what was said about the diaper, but they basically said it was inconclusive as to Orrin. Prosecutor Smith had asked Kim about a short shovel, a long shovel, and a gardening hoe, and Kim performed the Kastle-Meyer test looking for blood. All of these test results were negative results. No blood was found. Okay. Alexia Torres asked Kim, well, okay, so were you given it 2 other toothbrushes or toys to examine? And he said no. He agreed items came in batches. So they only did 1 toothbrush? Okay, what? Oh, and before I forget to tell you guys, they actually said that they're running ahead of schedule on this trial. So they may actually be in jury deliberations by May 17th. Woohoo! Good news, huh? Because we had originally thought it was going to go through till June. They brought up Mandy Van Buren and started talking about more DNA stuff that just what I like to say, well, what I'm going to say, it's inconclusive. When Hennessy asked her about how she got the items, she said that the California City police officer says this is how he got the items from the FBI. So apparently they came. I missed that part. I wish I'd have been listening to that part because I'm confused by it now. but maybe they'll bring it back up in the closing if it was worth anything. So Darren Wonderly was brought up, and he's the one that gives all of the data and has all the information regarding the phone pings. And I'm just going to be honest, guys, they throw out a bunch of addresses and names of streets and stuff that's not going to probably sit with you guys. So I'm going to try to narrow this down as much as I can. They basically were talking about when the different cell towers were used by different people. And he said the only time the T-Mobile tower was used by Ralph Mosley, the biological father, was December 23rd, 2020, which was after the boys were found, which is what he testified to. He did not go there until after the boys, he had never been there until after the boys were not found, after the boys had disappeared. So that rules him out, right? As far as him being around and doing anything with the boys. They reviewed phone calls for Trezell, Jacqueline, Ryan Dean, and Ralph Mosley. Ryan Dean, again, is the boy's biological mother. They were looking at data around September the 17th, September the 18th, September the 19th, the 20th, those 4 days. So I'm assuming, guys, based upon that just right there, why they're zeroing in on those 4 days, is that when they suspect that the boys were unalived, or that at least one of the boys was unalived? I mean, we know that they moved to Cal City right around that time, and I think that the prosecution is trying to show that something happened that was immediate. Something made them jump and go and leave when they did. Now, Jacqueline's phone on 12/21, the day after the boys were reported missing. Wait, right? Yeah. Her phone pinged over in Bakersfield, and she was supposed to be in Cal City at that point. There was a 10-minute call late that evening. There were multiple calls between two numbers, but they didn't say who it was. When they got up to be cross examined, he said that the call detail records reflect phone calls and text messages, nothing else. They're just putting a little bow on the package, I guess. I mean, now, okay, this is interesting. So listen to this, guys. So on September the 15th, a tower in Cal City was used, as were towers between Mojave and Tehachapi. On 9/15, on 9/14, records began at 7:45 a.m. to the evening, and all used a tower near Lotus Lane, which was where the apartment was in Bakersfield, and some to an area southwest, which is where they're talking about. So are they trying to say that at that point in time, that's when they did something with the bodies? I mean, it, some of this data shows them pinging, back in Lotus Lane where they were in the apartment in Bakersfield to the Cal City location, but I mean, they were in the process of moving and they did move themselves. So there would have been a lot of back and forth there. Maybe investigators believe that somewhere between Bakersfield and Cal City, on the way to the new home, the boys were disposed of somewhere, in between those areas. So they did actually go all the way back to September 11th of 2020 through their move date in the September 20th. So they also mentioned too that Ryan Dean's phone also never pinged in Cal City area on the days the boys were reported missing. So he said that he did look from July 30th, 2020 to October 30th of 2020, and he looked at the cell tower maps for all of their numbers to kind of get an idea of what was going on. And Wonderly basically was saying what he can pinpoint or what he can get from the different phone records, which is basically look the number you called, the length of the call, when it began, and when it ended. To make things even more confusing, since we don't have visuals, we have a Deshelle Smith and an Eric Smith. Deshelle Smith is now on the stand. She works for the Kern Regional Crime Lab. Eric Smith is part of the prosecution. He's the lead prosecutor on the case. Just to clarify that before I get into all this. All right, so Deshelle Smith said that one of her deputies was to process known reference samples of DNA. Deshelle Smith explained her job, how they do the DNA testing. Deshelle processed known reference samples for Trezell and Jacqueline and some of their children. When Alex Torres Stallings got up to cross, Deshelle told her they wait until the lab reports are complete before destroying samples. Then Mandy Van Buren got up, and she's the DNA technical leader at the Kern Regional Crime Lab. And they brought up some LabCorp stuff, a chart showing DNA profiles. And Van Buren explains a couple of charts and about how the charts work with the DNA profiles. And then Torres Stallings got up and cross-examined her, and Van Buren said that she has previously testified for this case. She said there were 24 locations looked for in the testing of a sample. 3 are male markers. Van Buren said that these two samples, Van Buren said for these two samples, they only looked at the electronic profile, not an actual swab. It's not common to evaluate an electrical sample. She has done it fewer than 10 times in 6 years. So then she said there's a technical review process that reviews the analysis done by others at the lab. And she explained that if a profile is partial, the statistics could be affected. Van Buren said she doesn't know if LabCorp has had past issues with the way they maintain DNA storage, which is the question that, of course, Torres Stallings asked. Of course she did. Now, Tim Hennessy, where's Tim Hennessy? He's over there hiding in the corner. We hardly ever hear from Tim Hennessy, but he says he's the lead attorney for Trezell West. He was questioning, and Van Buren said that they did accept certain items where they addressed how certain items were packaged. They didn't reject the items, but only tested certain parts. There were areas of certain items that were uncovered when they received them from Cal City Police, Van Buren said. They included the gardening tools. So they came to them uncovered. Great. Here's the shares. Let me just pass them over. Really? Really? Oh. Anyway, there was nothing found on them, but that just goes to them, for them to point it out, look what a sloppy job the investigators are doing. How could they possibly prove that Jacqueline and Trezell actually did all this? So that's it, guys. That's where we were from on Wednesday. Today's Thursday as I record this. I will not be doing another one tonight or tomorrow because there's no trial until Monday. So y'all be safe. Stay well until then, and I will talk to you soon.